Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into our show. I'm Janet Miranda.
And I'm Jai Sugrim. We're your hosts of Motivations. Our show is all about bringing resources to the public in the hopes to inspire positive change in the lives of our viewers. Our topic today discusses what we all universally have to face at various times in our lives: recovery.
From a physical injury, mental turmoil, or emotional imbalance, we all have to learn how we each individually pick back up and continue going forward in a healthy and productive process.
We have seen our friends and family fallen away from their dreams and goals. It can be rather easy to feel like we've not accomplished much or even, ultimately, feel failure.
And when this happens, it's common to numb the pain in various ways instead of conquering our fears by taking that giant leap and facing our issues head on to create positive change in the end.
The dictionary states, recovery is a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength. But I often wonder, what is the normal state? Did you know that according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, 19.7 million Americans battled substance abuse disorder in 2018? That's a staggering stat with some powerful implications about our country's overall mental well-being.
In today's world, we're so busy trying to make a living. We work hard to keep up with society and its superficial demands that we can subconsciously get lost in the shuffle. We here at Motivations believe recovery is of coming home to what was always there in our own hearts and embracing the beauty and strength of our own inner power. Recovery is strategically shunning our negative addictions and making healthy, integrated choices.
According to the American Addiction Center, factors that may increase a person's risk of addiction include a chaotic home environment, verbal and physical abuse, and a sense of isolation. Surely a shift can be made if we aim to create more connection and love in our lives.
I am so grateful that today's guests talk about how to make healthy choices that support physical and emotional well-being, finding independence, and creating healthy relationships.
I'm thrilled to hear from today's guests.
We hope you at home are just as excited as we are. It's fantastic that our guests will share some of their experiences and practical tools that our listeners can adapt into everyday living. Inspired action, developing new skills, and a positive attitude can help anyone on the path to recovery.
So thank you again for tuning in. Let's introduce our first guest now.
In our next interview, we sit down with the creator of the beautiful Badass Method, which consists of 7 steps to a healthy relationship with yourself, your body, and with food. Her practices have profoundly transformed her health, both mentally and physically, so now she teaches to share what she loves. Originally from Palo Alto and a graduate of Northwestern University, she's traveled worldwide to study Jivamukti yoga and meditation with master teachers, including Muji Baba, within depths of an eating disorder over a period of 20 years. She felt depressed, lonely, and had no idea what to do with her life after a horrible family tragedy. She left to Southeast Asia to grieve through her tears. She screamed and danced and prayed, and amongst finding peace and redemption, she awoke with a desire to serve others, supporting compulsive eating, negative body image, and anxiety. This inspirational woman will help you to thrive and find the best version of you. We welcome Lisa Rachael Snyder.
Welcome to Motivations. I'm your host, Jai Sugrim. With me today is Lisa Rachael Snyder. Lisa is a yoga and meditation teacher in the Jivamukti Yoga Method, and she's the founder of the beautiful Badass Method. Lisa has struggled in the past for over 20 years with her weight and relationship to food, and through practice and mindfulness, she's overcome that and has a process that she can share with us for our own evolution. Lisa, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Jai.
Yeah, we're glad that you're here. So just tell us a little bit about your personal journey, your upbringing, and a little later on segue into how you found your techniques.
Yeah, so I was an actor for a while, and I think that was part of the reason why I was struggling with food. I was really concerned about the way I looked, and when I was about 12, I went to my first Weight Watchers meeting, which was where I learned a really toxic belief, which was that I can't trust myself. That if I eat in the way that I want to eat, I'll never stop eating, I'll gain a lot of weight, I'll be ugly and fat and unworthy and unlovable. And so I learned that I have to be on a diet. I have to watch my weight. I have to count calories, or else I'll just completely blow up. And I lived with that belief for nearly 20 years. Even though I never threw up, I was never anorexic fully. I had a very dysfunctional relationship with food over the years. I was always obsessed with my weight and my body. And it wasn't really until a family tragedy that I found yoga and mindfulness meditation practices and completely turned my life around, because I learned how to love myself and I learned how to trust myself. And I learned that if I actually trust myself, I'm not going to eat everything in sight. I'm actually going to listen to my body and eat in the way my body wants me to eat and become healthy as a result of that.
Yeah, I find that where we are interesting, but I want to backtrack for a moment about where these ideas get implanted, because I remember even in around 13, I read a copy of the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I was really into Bruce Lee. And we get obsessed. I remember like these pilgrimages in India where when you're in India, everyone is clothed, you're not exposed to as much sexual advertising, and that energy is brought down. But in our culture, it's like we're never good enough. As a man, we have these body image disorders of like, am I muscular enough? Am I ripped enough? Even at 43, I find myself missing my abs and training like really hard. And sometimes I laugh at it and like, well, what is all this effort about? Can I just be happy with how I am today? So where do these ideas come from? Are they from all the magazines we're reading? Is it from our movies? Like, so many of us are chasing these sandcastles.
Yeah, it's this idea that we always need to be better. We always need more. It's this, in our culture, we're fed these advertisements that say you need to look a certain way, you need to be a certain way, and you need to buy these products in order to be better and better and better. There's like preventative, like anti-aging things, like which I'm not saying that there's really anything wrong with that by design, but what it's doing is it's telling us that we're not good enough as we are. So we live in this state of like this deep-rooted belief that I'm not good enough at my core.
Yeah. It sounds like we have to be careful what we expose ourselves to, because the advertisers have sort of hacked our brain's need for status, and our brains are built for survival and reproduction, and they show us this image that you will have reproductive success and options if you buy this. Like when I'm on the subway trains, I see these ads for makeup, and then if you go and you read the label, you see how toxic that is for the skin, and like that's being pushed all the time in so many forms everywhere, and we don't take into account what the back end of that is.
Yeah.
So with you and food, how did you, what created that shift where you started to look inside and look deeper?
Well, I found yoga when I was in a really toxic relationship, and he actually was an alcoholic, and I was pretty severely in my eating disorder at the time. Like I said, even though it was never like full-on bulimia or anorexia, I was in a state where I couldn't stop eating. I had been on all of these extreme diets, and there was a month period where I like literally couldn't stop eating, and that was sort of my rock bottom, because it was the same time that I left my alcoholic boyfriend and realized that I was actually in that relationship because we were both wrapped up in addictions. And if I wanted to have a healthy relationship ever, I needed to actually face this issue and admit to myself that it was a problem. So that was a turning point. I found Jivamukti Yoga at that time.
Did you break up with the guy when you started to do this work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I found Jivamukti Yoga, which I had practiced Bikram before, but it was not spiritual yoga. And Actually, your class was the second class I ever took at Jivamukti. And I was hooked because I started to understand that when I come into myself and my body, the body is always in the present moment. Mm-hmm. So when you practices like yoga and you're bringing your attention to the breath and the body, you're coming into the present moment. Mm-hmm. And that is self-love. And so it opened something in me. Mm-hmm. And I began working on myself for about 1.5 years. And then my brother committed suicide.
Wow.
And it happened unexpectedly. And at the time, I literally couldn't survive without being kind to myself. It was a huge turning point in my life. And as a result of that, I became vegan because I also didn't want to cause harm to anyone else. Mm-hmm. And I started being kind to myself, and it shifted everything. I started listening to my body, eating the way my body wanted me to eat, eating what my body wanted me to eat, stopping eating exactly when I was full, mm-hmm. and also choosing a compassionate diet which made me feel good about myself, and it almost made me feel like I therefore had permission to be kind to myself.
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and something that's interesting, which has been a correlate to my life and the points where I've gone deeper, and I think this could maybe be something that people at home can relate to, is when we detach and we do that deep inner work, right? And if we're in a toxic relationship, it's inhibiting our progress, but sometimes it's really resourceful to do some of our deepest work alone and to stand alone so that we can, what yoga and mindfulness and all of the mindfulness practices throughout every tradition, whether it's Buddhism, Zen, yoga, whatever the method is that we are good enough. Like, you're never really alone. Your spirit, the vastness of the mm-hmm. whole universe is within. And when we're distracted by others or someone else's journey and we're part of that dysfunction, it's very difficult. So right. you learn to trust yourself, and you can't do that if you're always leaning and reaching outside of yourself. And I think when we get to that place, did you experience the strength inside so that you can better be there for someone else? Like, now I'm better in a relationship because I don't bring all of my problems to someone. I can talk to a partner about, hey, I'm having a difficulty in my business, I have this sticking point to get through, but I'm self-reliant.
Yeah,
and
it's not a neediness.
It's not needy. So can you share that with our audience a little bit, that self-reliance and that trust you have to take a risk to be alone for a little while?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you're dealing with something like grief, and any degree of grief, whether that's a loss of a loved one or a loss of a job or a relationship or anything really that brings up that sense of loss, when you actually allow yourself to feel the grief, to experience the sadness, the anger, the relief, because grief is not just sorrow, the way we think of it. Grief, it runs the entire spectrum of emotions. When you allow yourself to completely feel all of those emotions and embrace them and surrender into them, there's a huge release that takes place. And for me, I had lived with this anxiety and this a bit of depression and sadness my entire life. And there had never really been a reason I never felt like I had a real reason to experience grief, even though there were reasons because I was carrying that sadness. Yeah, the thing about grief is that when you really allow yourself to experience it, so like, for example, when my brother died, it was really the first time in my life that something that I knew was bad had happened, and so I had struggled with depression and anxiety and my eating issues for pretty much my whole life, but I didn't feel like I had a real reason to feel that sadness. And then when my brother died, it was the first time in my life that I really allowed myself to feel the full spectrum of emotions. And because grief is not just sadness, the way we think of it. Grief is anger and even a little bit of relief. And so when I lost my brother, I grieved not just his death, but I also grieved all of these other things that I had never really allowed myself to grieve. And that's why it was so healing. And so it brought up all of the stuff that I was ready to let go of at that time.
So all of that comes to a point, and what can the person at home do? Can you tell us a little bit about the Beautiful Badass Method and some practical tools someone that's struggling with these issues can maybe put into play?
Yeah, so the Beautiful Badass Method is actually based on the 7 chakras. The first step is grounding, getting into your body. Most of us spend most of our time in our heads, in our minds, whether that's following a diet or whatever. And when we come into the body, we come into the present moment. And when we come into the body, we can actually listen to the body. So the first step is getting grounded, and I lead people through some practices, some really practical practices to get grounded in the body, and they're mindfulness-based practices. The second step is nourishment. Once you're in your body, you can listen to your body and choose the foods that your body craves, because it's really only when you choose the foods that your body truly craves that you'll feel satisfied.
Like the healthy foods, or?
But not necessarily healthy foods. I talk about nourishment as being important both physically as well as emotionally. So there's nothing wrong with, like, in our culture now, suddenly sugar and carbs are the enemy, right? And there's nothing wrong with eating sugar and carbs as long as you're eating out of kindness towards yourself. Because then it is nourishing you, and you're not going to overdo it if you're coming from that place. And you don't know why you're craving that. Maybe your body needs a little extra energy that day. Maybe you need a little sweetness, and it's okay to have a couple pieces of chocolate when you need a little sweetness. Because again, if it's coming from a place of self-love, you're not going to eat an entire box of chocolate. You're going to get your sweetness, and then you're going to move on, and that's it. Step 3 is empowerment. This is about taking your power back from all of these external sources. So the diets, the nutritionists, the scales, the Fitbits, like all of these things that we say, oh, well, I need to burn this many calories, or I need to like only eat this much, or whatever it is. And actually coming into a space of trust, because power actually comes from trust. Step 4 is love. And I touched on this a little bit before, but for me, the biggest turning point in my healing journey, when the binges stopped completely, was when I went vegan. And this was an act of love. This was a way of eating out of kindness for others, for animals, and for the environment. And I didn't expect this to happen, but it shifted everything, because I didn't know how to be kind and loving towards myself. So giving it away to others gave me permission to be kind to myself. It made me feel like I deserved it. So what I say with this step is that you need to eat in a way that feels compassionate, whatever that means to you. I'm not saying you have to be vegan to have a healthy relationship with food, but you need to eat in a way that feels aligned with your heart and your values. So that could be cutting out plastic. That could be shopping locally. That could be meatless Mondays. Whatever is aligned for you is what's going to work for you. Step 5 is integrity. Sticking with it, because the healing process is a windy road. It's not a straight path. Part of the process is going through these experiences that feel like mistakes or failures, but they're actually not mistakes. They're informing the healing. They're showing you where you're still resisting a little bit. And so trusting those experiences and sticking with the process and having faith in yourself along the way. Step 6 is forgiveness. Forgiveness comes from understanding and seeing the whole picture with clarity. So when you pull back enough to see the whole picture, you see that everything that happens is the result of everything that has happened. So where you are in your life is exactly where you're supposed to be.
It's a perfect sequence.
Yeah. You haven't done anything wrong. And in fact, the people in your life haven't done anything wrong. They're also all doing the best they can. And so when you pull back enough, the forgiveness happens naturally because you start to have compassion for yourself and for the other people in your life. And then step 7 is integration. Most of us identify with our thoughts, with our minds, but our thoughts lie to us all the time. So you could be having a great day and then all of a sudden you run into an ex with his new girlfriend, and all of a sudden you feel ugly and fat and unsuccessful, and nothing has actually changed except your thoughts.
Right.
So recognizing that thoughts like I'm fat or I'm ugly, these are just thoughts. They're not based in reality. And when you start to recognize that, you start to catch them more and more, and then you're truly free.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing those steps. I want to just backtrack to step 5 as we wrap up now and connect to the audience at home here. You said something important about the process of growth not being totally linear.
Right.
And I think that's important. We live in a perfectionist culture where we drive and drive and drive and we drive and we think we're going to smash through every obstacle. But in reality, sometimes we take 2 steps forward and it's natural for 1 step back to occur. And in that 1 step back, we have to be compassionate to ourselves. Not every meditation we sit in is going to be bliss. Sometimes we'll be agitated. We need to know that it's okay for us to be in the practice consistently, even though it's not a joyful...
Not always comfortable.
Yeah. So just a minute on that, and then we can wrap things up. But people need to know a little more about the process of growth not being linear and that the road can be bumpy.
Yeah, I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh says that no mud, no lotus. We need these resistances. We need these hard experiences to show us where we still have work to do, because otherwise there's nothing to grow from.
Right.
So they're actually gifts. All of these experiences that feel challenging are gifts. And when you begin to look at them that way, rather than saying, why is this happening to me? Then you're taking yourself out of a victim state and you're coming into a place of power and recognizing that you actually called these experiences in for your growth. So you say, thank you, this sucks, this is not fun to go through, but I'm game and I'm gonna do it and I'm gonna be better for it.
Thank you so much for coming on the program
Thank you.
today and sharing your experience with us. You're watching Motivations. We'll be right back with more for your mind. Our next guest is an acclaimed and beloved artist who is a multi-award-winning filmmaker and actress. In August of 2015, she was diagnosed with cancer. The arduous battle with breast cancer tested her definition of self and put a serious challenge in her acting career. Later, she established a nonprofit program, Paint Us Pink, designed to help women in the arts who are also undergoing treatment for breast cancer. Not only is she a survivor who overcame obstacles, she went on to resume her thriving acting career and created a successful film festival. Amongst being a multifaceted powerhouse woman in the entertainment industry, she's also an accomplished painter whose work showcased at the very prestigious National Arts Club in New York City and in the homes of many celebrities like Whoopi Goldberg, James Gandolfini, the Duchess of York, and singer Andre Bocelli. We are excited to share her inspiring story with you today on Motivations. This is the one and only Kathrina Miccio.
Hello, and welcome back to Motivations. I'm so blessed to be here today with our wonderful guest, Kathrina. Kathrina, tell the world, I mean, you have such an amazing story. I don't even want to begin to tell it because I really just want them to really hear from you and from your heart space. When we began to speak about, all the things that you overcame, it just really fascinated me about, how you not just how you didn't just succeed in the one role as an actress, as a makeup artist, but after your entire journey, which you're going to go on to tell, but you became a filmmaker, not just a filmmaker, but you also founded a film festival and provided a platform for other filmmakers so that they can achieve and succeed. And you're over here not only giving them a platform and getting them awards and, really celebrating their efforts, but you're celebrating life.
Yes.
Please tell us, how did you get to such an amazing place? And, how did you, from when you discovered that you were not well, how did you jump from, being in such a tough place to overcoming and succeeding and then becoming the fantastic human being that you are?
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, I think you missed one thing. I am a painter, too.
Oh, my God, and a painter.
Did you see
Wow.
the artwork upstairs?
I sure did. I didn't know that was
That
yours.
was yours. That's mine.
But please, tell the world first
Okay.
your full name.
My name is Kathrina Miccio. I am actually I'm an all-around artist. Whether I paint, whether I act, or anything creative. I was a makeup artist for many, many years, and then I got married, and that didn't last. So we got divorced, and then the same month that the divorce went through, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was twofold. So that was a very, it was very stressful in many ways because I was now on my own. And I thought that everything was okay, and I went and got an apartment, and this really nice building, and then I got breast cancer, and they're like, well, this is going to go on for 1.5 years of treatments. I'm like, okay, then who's going to pay my rent? So financially, nobody realizes that when you get sick and you're alone and you're an artist, that nobody is paying your rent for you. So financially, it was very hard for me. So I actually created a fundraising program called Paint Us Pink, and I'll just briefly talk about that because it's really important to me. I said, when I was going through chemo and everything, I made this website, and I said I really want to be able to help women and men too that get breast cancer. I want to help them financially while they're in treatment. So just help pay one rent, a bill, a car payment, anything really, really helps. And I was not eligible for Social Security. I was not eligible for anything.
Well, how does one survive with all?
Well, I was lucky that I had redesigned my entire house, renovated it, and we ended up getting we made a little bit of money on the house. So I ended up using that and all of my savings. So I was pretty much wiped out. But never stopped me, because while I was in chemo, all I kept thinking about was the doctors told me that it was a bad thing that I got breast cancer, but the good thing was that they pretty much had a 98% cure for it. And if I did everything that they told me to do, on their time, on their watch, they told me that I would be fine.
Were they right?
Well, yeah, I'm here.
Thank
3
God.
years later.
Yes.
So while that was all going on, I decided that I'm going to pay back as much as I possibly could. So the first thing I thought of,
Pay back to the world.
pay back to the world, to the universe, and not ever look at somebody going, how are you doing? You okay? I'm a very independent person. I always have been. And I never really, I'm like, why are people looking at me like that? Oh, maybe because I have a wig on my head and I have no eyelashes or eyebrows.
How is that as a woman, as an actress, as an artist, to go from being glammed up most of the time to having no hair and no eyebrows or no eyelashes?
Well, I guess being a makeup artist helped a bit. They told me that if I didn't shave my head right before the second treatment, that I was going to find it down the drain when I took a shower, was going to fall out or wake up with it all over my pillow. So I said, I don't think I get
scary.
Alone.
Yeah, that's
Being
very
alone
scary.
and dealing, I said, no, that's not going to happen. So I went to my hairdresser. Well, first I got a wig. I got a wig that was very similar to my hair. And I had my hairdresser put my hair like an old bunch of ponytails, and then he cut it and shaved it, and then we put the wig on right away. So it wasn't that bad of a transition. I think
But even as you're talking about it, I can see that you're reliving some of that emotion. Would you say that that's you still have some of that in you, some anxiety or some of that tense heaviness?
I mean, the thought of somebody
cutting off your hair and having to overcome all of that.
And then the lashes came out and the eyebrows came out.
Did that take you into a depressed...
I looked like a Martian.
Did that take you into a
depressed... No,
I
never went depressed. I never felt depressed. I never felt, why me? Never. And I should have. There was every reason to, because there's 0 cancer in my family.
But what a great inspiration that is to so many people out there that are feeling that way. If there's anything that you can say to someone who is dealing with, an illness of some sort, what would you say?
Never, ever feel sorry for yourself. I know it's really hard, but you have to just think ahead and think of what you could do for the world and how to change it for yourself and make yourself happy.
And what were some of the things that you developed? You said that you developed this charity.
Yes.
But what were some of the additional things that you developed to give back?
I decided while I was in chemo to take away all of the sorrow that people felt for me. I'm usually a very happy person and I laugh a lot. So I said, I'm going to write a comedy. And I had an idea for it, and I said, I'm going to make it happen. And when I'm clear and my hair is back, and it was sort of back when I had some extensions, but I made a comedy. And not only has it been very successful, I just won last week my 15th award.
15 awards, and I saw it. It was a great film.
Did you like it?
Yes, I did. It was really
very
cute.
silly.
It was really. I liked it. The whole, the whole theory. I thought it was awesome. So
superstition.
Yeah. But it was really cute. But so anyway, so you got this film going. It's award winning, and you developed a film festival.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this film festival.
Well, I did a private screening because some of the actors didn't want to go to the film festivals. So I said, okay, where could I do this that I know that I'll get these people there? Because people are like, well, if I'm not up for an award, I'm not going to go to the film festival. Okay, whatever. So, all right. So there's a place called the Cutting Room where my artwork is, and it's been there since 2001. They have a separate room, which is like a dinner room, like a theater room, where the musicians perform. I knew that they had a projector and a screen, so I said, I know the sound is going to be good because it's a music venue. So I said, all right, I'm just going to do a private show here. And I did, and everybody was like, this is really nice. And I walked around the room, and I saw that you could see the screen in every part of the room. I mean, you saw the room was packed.
Yes.
And everybody saw it from every angle. So I said, this is great. I'm going to just do it.
So you decided to do a film
I just
festival?
did it. Yep.
An entire festival?
I did a festival all by myself.
Featuring other artists and other filmmakers.
That's another, that I was like, how great is this that I will be able to choose who I think
should go up there.
should be there. and who's so deserving of it. And a lot of these people I know personally. I mean, the New York, New Jersey film world, acting world, it's very small.
And we will get into that when we bring you back as another time, because I can't wait.
Okay.
But before we close out, and I'm sorry to cut you off,
That's
because
okay.
you're so fascinating.
I have
just
so
want to
many
keep
things
listening to
say.
you. I just want to keep listening to you. But Kathrina, with the journey that you've been able to really drive through, and still, I mean, things happen to people and they become so angry and hostile and miserable, and sometimes. But then you have survivors like yourself, where you went through obstacles and challenges, and yet not only you were able to overcome this, but now you serve as an example for other people, leading through, challenges, obstacles, and really becoming a leader of great energy, somebody who really just manifests greatness, not just for herself, but platforms for other people. And a couple of words of motivation for our youth out there who are struggling and going through something that's really challenging. What would you say to them from your heart space?
I didn't have an easy childhood, with my parents getting divorced, and there was a lot of things that you go through, but you have to always look ahead and look into the future. Don't look in the past, always look ahead and just carry on and really try to do anything that you want to do.
I mean, the one thing that really touched me when you were saying, a lot of things touched me, but the one thing that really resonated when you said to the world, the doctors gave you hope.
Yes.
They told you that you would be okay.
Yeah.
And you held on to that.
I held on. I had to.
Would you say that hope is something that you wish for society who's experiencing some difficulties?
I've always been a positive person, and I try to keep negativity away from me. Anything negative, I try to turn into a positive. So I would always say that. Don't say, I would never say, I don't know how to do that. No, you don't say, I don't know. You say, I'm going to find out how to do it.
Kathrina, thank you so much for being here today. Guys, stay tuned. More motivations coming your way. Thank you, everyone, for watching our show. We truly hope you enjoyed it.
Tune in on our next episode airing soon. More exciting details and upcoming guests will be featured on our social media pages.
Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, tweet us on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll both see you there.